I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room. If you're new, welcome into the program. If you're returning, welcome back. Listen, Linda, listen. If you want to stay up to date with everything The Locker Room has going on, if you want exclusive content, exclusive videos, chance to win cash prizes off and on, and just simply have some fun, then follow us on our social media. That is TLR Podcast 615, TLR Podcast 615. This episode is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all of your gym needs. I'm telling you, now is the time to get yourself into the best shape of your entire life, and FNX Fitness can help with supplements, recoveries, gainers, downers. No, I'm just joking. It doesn't have downers, but everything you need, from clothing to training gear to pre-workout, post-workout, everything you need. And I'm telling you, everything you need, all made here in the beautiful USA. And if you use your promo code TLRHOST, that is TLRHOST, all capitals, I will give you 15% off your first purchase. So I love how when you talk about one Paul brother, the other one just pops up in the news 3 days later. It's like Beetlejuice, except for douchebags. When you say Jake Paul, or Logan Paul, the other douchebag just pops up and is in the news. And now we get Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, the fight that everybody honestly has been talking about happening and needing to happen. And here's why I think this is so important for this fight to happen. This fight would do one of two things for both fighters. For Jake Paul, this fight would bring validity to his name. For Jake Paul, this would not only make him a megastar, but this would make him a boxing star. This would finally make Jake Paul, I think, respected enough to be considered a boxer. Listen, right now, Jake Paul is not a boxer. Right now, Jake Paul is nothing but a celebrity fighter, right? He's nothing but a YouTuber. He put on some boxing gloves and has been fighting a bunch of no-name guys. And we'll get to all that here in just a second. But I think if he beat Tommy Fury, even though Tommy Fury is 7-0 and hasn't really fought many good guys either, and Tommy Fury kind of is a celebrity as well, being on a reality TV show in the UK, I think this would bring some validity to Jake's name when it comes to the boxing world. What would this do for Tommy Fury? This would make Tommy Fury one of the most famous boxers in the entire world, right up there with his brother Tyson Fury, right? The greatest heavyweight of all time. For the simple fact that he would have knocked out Jake Paul. He would have put Jake Paul on his ass. He would have given Jake Paul his first loss and sent Jake Paul packing for the foreseeable future. Because if Jake Paul were to lose this match to Tommy Fury, Jake Paul has no leg to stand on. Because the one guy that he went up against that was a real quote-unquote boxer, the one guy that he went up against that had almost the exact same record as him, so he couldn't, it's not like he's fighting Canelo and can use the excuse, well, Canelo's the greatest in the world in his division right now. No. He would be fighting a guy that has 3 more wins than him, has fought a bunch of more amateur fights, or has fought a bunch of amateur fights like Jake Paul. Like, he would be fighting a guy that, if he were to lose to, he would literally be dropped out of the fighting world and no one would ever talk about him again. But if he were to beat, as silly as this is, being that Tommy Fury is only 7-0 and has really only fought crappy fighters, would launch Jake Paul into stardom. Like, he's already a star and a megastar, but it would launch Jake Paul into the boxing stardom. I think he'd be considered a real boxer, and if he beats Tommy Fury, now Jake Paul has to become a real boxer. There's no more celebrity fights anymore. This is Jake Paul, the boxer. But like I said, if you lose to a guy like Tommy Fury, then everything that you've done, all your amateur fights, everything, all of that goes away. You can probably still do celebrity boxing, but you will never be respected as an actual amateur boxer. You will never be respected in the boxing community, and no one will care about you. You'll be like your brother fighting 60-year-old washed-up boxers like Mike Tyson here in a couple of months, just so you can get a big paycheck. That's all you're going to have available to you if you lose to Tommy Fury. Now, Tommy Fury on the flip side, like I said, Tommy Fury, I'm not convinced that Tommy Fury is a world-class boxer. He's nothing like his brother, right? I mean, Tyson Fury is the greatest heavyweight of all time, in my personal opinion. Even though, I mean, you have guys like Muhammad Ali and all that, but it's so different in that, I've talked about this on the program, it's such a different era that it's almost impossible to compare because heavyweights were considered, 180 back in the day, and Tyson Fury is almost 300 pounds. So they just, stylistically, weight-wise, size-wise, it just doesn't make sense to consider all heavyweights. I would say that Tyson Fury is the greatest heavyweight. If you put him in any era, he would dominate any era. That's just my personal opinion. But we'll get off that subject because that's, a take 5 for another day. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But if Tommy Fury wins, literally this will launch his boxing career even further and will launch his celebrity career even further because he will have knocked out the one guy that everybody in the entire world despises. There's one big reason this fight had to happen. There's one big reason that Jake Paul couldn't have run the rematch back with Tyron Woodley. As I told you all, I told you, when I talked about the Tyron Woodley fight, I told you that there were stipulations, that there was something shady going on behind the scenes. I told you that Jake Paul wasn't going to fight Tyron Woodley fairly. Tyron Woodley was not going to have a fair shot to put Jake Paul down, to knock him out cold. And do you want to know why? Because out in the news this past week, we found out, not from Tyron Woodley himself because he didn't want to give up his bag because he signed a contract, a no-talk contract basically, a mafia contract as I like to call them, where if he says anything he gets money removed. He signed a contract that he was not allowed to knock out Jake Paul. And that comes from Dylan Dennis. It comes from several other sources that say they know for 100% fact that Tyron Woodley signed a contract where A, he couldn't talk about it, and B, he wasn't allowed to knock out Jake Paul. This is why this fight needed to happen, because I told you. I said that Jake Paul was doing some shady business. I told you that he wasn't fighting Tyron Woodley straight up. I told you that if that was a straight up fight, Tyron Woodley would have murdered him. And guess what? If you watched that fight, you saw Tyron Woodley not only knock Jake Paul on his back and get himself caught in the ropes, but he slowly backed away after knocking Jake Paul back and knocking him woozy. He could have knocked Jake Paul out right there. 1-2, bam, Jake Paul hits the mat. It's game over. Instead, Jake Paul ends up winning the fight. So it's rigged, but it's not rigged at the same time. They were really trying to, Tyron Woodley was really trying to outbox Jake Paul, but guess what? When you don't train boxing every single day, it's going to be hard to outbox somebody that boxes every single day. But when you're allowed to knock somebody out, and you have a knockout artist like Tyron Woodley, who has a massive right hand, who caught Jake Paul with that massive right hand, who would have knocked Jake Paul out if he was allowed to, then guess what? Now it's rigged, but not rigged at the exact same time. I know it sounds confusing because it is confusing. I knew it. And I've wanted to talk about this so bad. Jake Paul is a punk. Jake Paul is a crybaby. Jake Paul is a whiner. He is a participation trophy kid. He is one of those guys that's like, well, I'll box Tyron Woodley, but he's not allowed to knock me out. We'll put that into a contract, and he'll have a gag clause where he's not allowed to say anything about the contract that we signed. That's why that's why everything was so shady around Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. So the reason you can't run the Tyron Woodley fight back is because everybody knows now that Jake Paul had a no knockout contract with him. So we knew we weren't getting an honest fight. We knew we weren't getting a fight where Tyron Woodley was going to be allowed to lay Jake Paul out on the mat. Because guess what? We almost saw that, and then it went away. Why? Because of the contract. We saw Tyron Woodley, bam, bam, knock Jake back against the ropes. Oh, it's over. Jake Paul's woozy. And then Tyron Woodley just dances back to his corner, stays distant, doesn't hit Jake Paul anymore, lets Jake Paul get his feet back, and then Jake Paul ends up winning the fight. That is why I can't stand celebrity boxing. That is why I can't stand Jake Paul. All right, did I get my rant out of the way? I hope so. But you can't tell me that you could run back a Tyron Woodley fight. Because you can't. When everybody found out that Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul, their fight was basically rigged, but it wasn't rigged. It was still a boxing match, but it was a boxing match with stipulations, which in my opinion is rigging it and cheating, and you're cheating the fans mainly, then you can't run that fight back. according to everybody, that this Jake Paul and Tommy Fury fight is going to be the first real fight of Jake's career. This is going to be no stipulations. It's going to be, full regulation boxing. So I hope we get a contract where it's just straight up best man wins that day. We don't get a no knockout clause, a gag clause, and all this other crap that we get with Jake Paul. And that's the biggest reason that Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley just disappeared out of nowhere. So Tyron Woodley gets the tattoo, and then all that talk slowly dissipates. All that talk slowly disappears. No one knows what happened to the Jake Paul-Tyron Woodley fight. Why isn't that going to happen? What is the rematch? Blah, blah, blah. All that disappears. Why? Because Jake Paul looks like a fool now. Because Tyron Woodley looks like a fool now. Because you're signing contracts where you're not even allowed to knock guys out. This isn't Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. where it's, no headshots. That makes sense. They're 1,000 years old, combined age together. You don't need them knocking each other in the face, right? But when it's Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley and you're having no knockout clauses and gag clauses, I think we have a real problem here. And that's why I'm fed up with Jake Paul, and that's why Tommy Fury needed to happen. Because apparently, from what I'm hearing, we are going to get an honest, straight-up boxing match between two amateur boxers. Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul, which is what the people deserve. Now, as you know, I never give my predictions this far away from the fight. I will say this. Jake Paul is in immensely good shape. He has been in training camp ever since his last fight. And, I think that's going to be a benefit to Jake Paul. But Tommy Fury is no pushover. Tommy Fury is a big boy. He's 6 foot. I think Jake Paul is 6'1", 6'2", but he's got a much longer reach. I think he's somewhere around like 82 and Jake's like 76. I forget what the numbers were, but I know that Tommy Fury is going to have a much bigger reach advantage. Tommy Fury is going to have a little bit more ring experience. And Jake Paul's also never fought somebody that's young, that has stamina, that has some power in his hands, and is actually a technically good boxer. A technical boxer. I mean, he's training with Tyson Fury and guys like, guys that are the greatest at this craft. So I think it's going to be a very tough fight for Jake Paul. And I also think that if Tommy Fury doesn't bring a strong level of dedication and Tommy Fury doesn't bring a strong level of respect, honestly, towards Jake Paul, that it could be a very tough night for Tommy Fury as well. That being said, I really want to give my prediction. I really do. I'll hold off on it. We've got other episodes coming. I'll hold off on my prediction for right now, but it's December, 17th, I think? December 18th. Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. Cannot wait. And now we're not going to talk about the Paul brothers until it gets a little closer to the fight because I'm done with both those jackasses.
And that's the way the news goes.
So last week I did a TikTok about my all-time NBA starting five. And it's a lot of fun, and I'd love to hear from you about your starting five. I'd love to hear what team you have that you think could beat mine. I played this game on TikTok and had a bunch of people write in. It was a lot of fun, and some people had some really good answers. Some people had some very sarcastic answers, but nonetheless, TLR Podcast 615, Instagram, whatever, Twitter, shoot me a tweet, shoot me a DM on Instagram, and I'll repost my favorite teams. But here's my all-time starting five. Let's get it. All right, at my point guard position, give me Steph Curry. The reason I'm choosing Steph Curry is Steph Curry has unlimited range, best shooter of all time. He's an underrated ball handler. He's an underrated passer. And what Steph Curry is going to allow me to do is open up my floor for my wings. Steph Curry literally is the ultimate deep range threat. Steph Curry will have guys around him that can get him the ball in open space. And what's open space for Steph Curry? Anything past half court, I think basically is how that works. Steph Curry's range is stupid. Greatest shooter of all time. So I've got to take Steph Curry at my point guard position. At my shooting guard position, give me MJ. Are we being for real here? Give me the greatest scorer of all time. I said greatest scorer of all time, not the greatest player of all time. But give me the greatest scorer of all time. Steph Curry giving you that much range and that much of a deep threat will open up the lane for a guy like Michael Jordan, who is already unstoppable as it is, but to just do more and more damage with open space, because you're going to have to start respecting Steph Curry at some point, right? So therefore, Michael Jordan's going to be able to operate like a madman with a bunch of open space. Think about how he was able to operate with guys like Steve Kerr. Great shooters, but nothing compared, not even close. Not even close to Steph Curry. Then again, who is close to Steph Curry? But anyways, at my small forward position, at my 3, let me get LeBron James. Listen, I checked the rule books, people. I'm not making a fantasy team here. LeBron James has been listed as a small forward several times in his career. Therefore, I feel like LeBron James can be put at my small forward position. So I want LeBron James in my small forward. He's a massive small forward at 6'9", around, 230, 245? Like, massive dude. Greatest driver of the basketball of all time. Greatest passer of the basketball of all time. Greatest player of all time. You give me that guy and MJ and Steph Curry, right there, it's already a wrap. But I want LeBron James as my small forward position. He's already going to be, like I said, a little bit bigger than most small forwards. And he's going to be too strong for them, which I think is important. And all of this is also in their primes, just so you all know. Okay, I had someone ask me that question on TikTok the other day. Is this them in their primes? No. I want 60-year-old Michael Jordan right now. Yes, of course. I'm not making fun of this guy. I'm trying to be a nice person, right? But yes, this is them in their prime. Okay? But yeah, LeBron James is my small forward position. Insanity. At my power forward position, this one was the most difficult for me because your first instinct is to just say, put Kevin Durant there. You know, you'll have the greatest scoring lineup of all time. But the problem is I really don't need scoring. I've got Steph Curry, I've got Michael Jordan, and I've got LeBron James. I don't need a guy that can put a ball in the basket. I need a guy that can defend the basket. I need a guy that can give me rebounds. I need a reliable defender, a reliable pick and roll guy, a reliable rebounder, a reliable leader, a voice on the court. Give me Timmy D. Duncan. I want Tim Duncan. I mean, Mr. Reliable. He's always going to be in the right position. He's also a very good scorer. I mean, you know, but I'm not getting him for scoring. I'm getting him for the defense. I'm getting him for the rebounding. I'm getting him for literally just being Mr. Consistent, always being in the right place, being a great pick and roll guy. I want Timmy D. So that leaves me Steph Curry at my point, Michael Jordan at my shooting guard, LeBron James at my small forward, Timmy D at my power forward, and at my center position. This is in their prime. Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal in his prime was the most unstoppable big man ever. Go ahead. Name somebody else that was more unstoppable than Shaq in his prime. I'll wait. Exactly. There's nobody. I've done the research. I've watched the highlight videos. I mean, I know. Like Kobe said, R.I.P. Kobe. Kobe said if Shaquille O'Neal had the same work ethic as he did, if Shaquille O'Neal had the same work ethic as LeBron James or Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal would probably go down as the greatest player of all time. And that's not being facetious. He was that unstoppable. But sadly, Shaquille O'Neal did not have that type of work ethic. He loved cheeseburgers too much. He liked messing around, Shaq'd in a fool, the big Diesel, the big Superman. You know, he liked to have some fun. He didn't put in as much work. He relied a lot on his size and his athleticism, which is a pretty good thing to lean on when you're 7'3", 320 pounds. I get that. I mean, I think I would rely on that stuff too. But I want Shaq for the simple fact that Shaq is going to give me boards. Shaq's going to dunk the basketball and protect the rim. I don't need Shaq for anything else. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal in his prime was a freak of nature. You're now pairing him with the best passer of all time in LeBron James, the best shooter in Steph Curry, the best scorer in Michael Jordan, and the most reliable guy in the entire universe, which is Mr. Timmy D. Duncan. So therefore, that is the greatest starting lineup of all time. Hey, listen, like I said, TLR Podcast 615, shoot me your lineups. Let's see if you can make a lineup that will beat mine. There's been no one on TikTok that's been able to do it. Part of that's because I'm just selfish and think that my lineup's the greatest of all time. So therefore, but I mean, I have seen some good ones on TikTok. I have seen a lot of good ones on TikTok. There was a lot of people that left LeBron James and or Michael Jordan off their list, and that's not a joke. Like, they're being for real. Like, a lot of people put Larry Bird in place of LeBron, or put I saw somebody put Magic Johnson in place of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant in place of Michael Jordan. So, like, let's guys, gals, people, let's be smart about this. Let's use the thing between our ears called the brain. Michael Jordan and LeBron James will be on your starting lineup. And if they're not, I'm probably not even going to look at it. But there you go. That is my all-time starting five in the NBA.
Grass tastes bad.
First off, if you don't know where these sound transitions are from, then I pity your life, because this is from one of the greatest shows of all time, Rick and Morty. But nonetheless, here we go. We've got a new segment here called Game Changer, and here's some things that are game-changing. Mainly things in the NFL, because there's so many of them happening this week. First off first out the gate, first off the bat, first up on the plate, whatever phrase you want to use, no more Derrick Henry. For 8 to 10 weeks, Derrick Henry, the greatest running back in the NFL right now, I'm just going to come out and say it. Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook when healthy, Christian McCaffrey are all right there. But Derrick Henry, his consistency, the fact that this man was on pace to break the regular season record for most yards in a single season. Like, this dude is just a freak of nature. He's 6'5". He can run the ball at lightning speed. He can truck over people. He literally threw human beings when he runs. Like, I saw him throw humans with one arm. It's mind-blowing. But Derrick Henry is gone for the Tennessee Titans for 8 to 10 weeks. That's a big game changer, and not in a good way. You see, the thing that Derrick Henry does for the Tennessee Titans offense is not just run the ball, not just catch the ball out of the backfield, not just throw touchdowns like we saw a couple weeks ago. It's the threat of Derrick Henry doing all of those things. It's the threat that if Derrick Henry gets the ball, he is one cut away from breaking it 75 yards. It's the threat of Derrick Henry as a weapon at all times. Getting Derrick Henry out of the backfield will be the Titans' downfall unless Ryan Tannehill plays out of his mind. Listen, I think Jeremy McNichols and I think that Adrian Peterson can do some damage, and they can keep the backfield, I say, alive. They could keep the backfield interesting. But Ryan Tannehill is going to have to toss the ball all over the field. He's going to have to get the ball to Josh Reynolds. He's going to have to get the ball to A.J. Brown. He's going to have to get the ball to Julio Jones. And the problem is, in order for that to happen, those guys have to be healthy and playing every single Sunday while Derrick Henry's unavailable. If the Tennessee Titans want to make it to the playoffs, if they want to get Derrick Henry back for the playoffs, they say he's 8 to 10 weeks out, looking more like on the 8-week side, that would bring him back in time for the playoffs. If they want to make a deep playoff run and a Super Bowl push, which I honestly think they can. That's not literally me trying to be facetious. That's not me just talking from a supporter of the Titans. This is an honest fact. The Tennessee Titans are good enough with this defense and with this offense to make a strong Super Bowl push. Of course, Derrick Henry has to be healthy in order for that to happen, but the Tennessee Titans need to survive to get to that point. I mean, if they win 4 to 5 more games, they'll be in the playoffs. If they can make 9 wins, they're going to probably win the division for sure. The Colts have to go 7-2 in order for them to win the division and to win and to make that playoff spot. I don't think that's actually going to happen at all. So it's impossible for the Colts to go 7-2, especially with what we saw on Sunday, playing one of their better games, and they still end up losing to the Tennessee Titans on a last-second field goal. So the Tennessee Titans right now, as long as they can just stay afloat, as long as they can just hit 9 wins, they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to probably be able to get Derrick Henry back. But in order for that to happen, the offense has got to stay healthy, and it's got to be on Ryan Tannehill's arm. McNichols is not going to break the bank. Adrian Peterson is going to do some damage, but he's not going to break the bank. The biggest reason it's a game changer is because the Tennessee Titans have to change their game. They have to be a pass-heavy offense and a run offense second. They no longer can rely on King Henry to run them to victories, to seal their victories. This is a massive loss for the Tennessee Titans. And if they can't survive enough this year, if they can't win a few games off of Ryan Tannehill's arms, if they can't get Julio Jones and A.J. Brown staying healthy throughout the rest of the year, then the Tennessee Titans are not only going to barely make the playoffs, but they're going to be probably the last seed in the AFC and get smacked in round number 1. You can't play the Buffalo Bills in round number 1. You can't play the Baltimore Ravens in round number 1 without Derrick Henry and expect to win. So we will see what the Tennessee Titans are made of coming out of this devastating news, coming out of this devastation this week. How can Mike Vrabel turn this team around? How can they turn this offense around? And can Ryan Tannehill throw his way to victories? Because that is the only way the Tennessee Titans will survive long enough to get King Henry back. Another big game changer would probably be the fact that Von Miller is now a Los Angeles Ram, and the Rams are now my new Super Bowl favorite. I'm going to do my updated Super Bowl projections next week, but this is just insanity at this point. They have the best defender in all football in Aaron Donald. Some people like to argue that fact. I like to say watch the tape. They have the second best defensive player in a lot of people's opinions, Jalen Ramsey. Now, I'm not in the fact that I think he's the second best, but Jalen Ramsey is a top 5 defensive player in the NFL. And now they're about to add a guy that is a top 15 defensive player in the NFL still. Aaron Donald, number 1. This is his ranking. Number 1. Guess Von Miller's. Number 4. At their positions, Von Miller was ranked number 4 and Aaron Donald was ranked number 1. And the problem is now number 4, Von Miller, is going to be able to go one-on-one in most situations because you can't leave Aaron Donald one-on-one. You just can't. I mean, Aaron Donald is being doubled and triple teamed every play for a reason. It's Aaron Donald. He is the closest thing to Lawrence that we've seen. I mean, a guy that literally is almost unstoppable. It's quite insane. So that means that Von Miller, this was a great pickup for the Los Angeles Rams because Von Miller is going to be able to operate one-on-one, and Von Miller is still going to be able to be very effective and win a lot of those one-on-one matchups. A lot of the pressure is going to be off him. You got to think Von Miller has been the number 1 on his team ever since he got there, and he's still winning matchups at in Denver. He's still winning matchups at 33 years old. And now he's going to be able to go to a team in order to win a Super Bowl, honestly. They're building a Super Bowl defense. And he's going to be able to go to a team that has Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey that can lift some of the pressure off of his back. I mean, the Rams are building their famous 1960s defense, right? I know we're going all the way back to the 60s. But I mean, they're just building the new version of Legion of Boom. It's craziness. He's a game changer for the right reason. The Los Angeles Rams offense has already started to click. Matthew Stafford, I told you, is one of the most talented throwers of the football that we have in the NFL. Very, very, very underrated. He's starting to click. Cooper Kupp and him are just snapping. If you have fantasy right now, I'm sure you're just loving Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. You still have Robert Woods, Darrell Henderson Jr. You've got a lot of players on that offense that can make plays for you. You're going to be able to score the football, and now you're about to add a stacked defense. I mean, this is what wins championships. Defense. It still stays true in the NFL. Teams that can play tough defense in the best moments are the teams that win. Look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How did they win in the playoffs? How did they start winning in the Super Bowls? Was it shootouts? Not a whole lot. Not very often were they winning in shootouts. It was guys like Devin White not only making a name for themselves, but making a case that they could have been MVP of the Super Bowl by the way they played. It was them making Patrick Mahomes look pedestrian. That's the kind of defense that is going to win you a Super Bowl. Von Miller's a Super Bowl MVP, by the way. They beat up on Cam Newton and a Carolina Panthers offense that was ridiculous. Unstoppable. And Von Miller won Super Bowl MVP. Massive game changer. The Los Angeles Rams are now my new favorite to win the Super Bowl. Another big game changer this week. Jameis Winston has officially torn his ACL and is done for the year. Taysom Hill is likely to return to the starting role. It sounded like I was literally reading off a piece of paper there. Taysom Hill is likely to return to the starting role, but here's the deal. Phillip Rivers is available. Mr. Retired father of 25 children, Phillip Rivers, just got done coaching his high school team, did a wonderful job, and has announced that he is willing to answer a phone call from Sean Payton if that phone call were to happen. Phillip Rivers could be a game changer for the New Orleans Saints. And I know that sounds crazy. But hear me out. The New Orleans Saints have a Super Bowl worthy defense. Cam Jordan is still just dominating like Cam Jordan does. They have a defense that can win them a Super Bowl. They need a quarterback that can deliver a ball. Marquez Callaway has come on very, very strong for them. And here's the deal. Phillip Rivers is a professional. Phillip Rivers knows how to win football games. Phillip Rivers, it's not like he's been retired for 5 years. It's only been a season. Phillip Rivers would do just nicely in the starting role. I like Taysom Hill as a gadget guy, and I think that Taysom Hill with Phillip Rivers could make life miserable for a lot of teams. For the simple fact that Phillip Rivers is your traditional pocket passer, and Taysom Hill is just whatever you need him to be. Running back, wide receiver, quarterback, he can do it all. Return punts if you need him to. But if I'm Sean Payton, I'm building this weird, unique dynamic of Taysom Hill and Phillip Rivers. I'm letting Phillip Rivers be the veteran that Phillip Rivers is, and then Taysom Hill just cause chaos around the field. Phillip Rivers could be a game changer for the Saints team. They need veteran leadership. They need a guy like Phillip Rivers to come in, be able to run a simple offense, and bring that trash talking with them. We need trash talking Phillip Rivers on a Super Bowl ready team like the New Orleans Saints immediately. Phillip Rivers is the greatest trash talker in the history of sports. When he retired, I said the exact same thing because everybody thinks that trash talking has to be swearing and it has to be like, oh, you can suck my, or, you can F off. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. Phillip Rivers doesn't swear, so he gets super creative. He's hilarious. He's a sarcastic douchebag, and I love it. I love it. My favorite video is when he throws a 92-yard touchdown, and he just gets up in the guy's face and he's like, 90-yard touchdown, 90-yard touchdown. And the guy's like, you don't have to do it in my ear. And he's like, but I'm going to. Like, that's who Phillip Rivers is. And I think bringing that edge to the Saints team, I think bringing a guy like Phillip Rivers in would do Sean Payton a good stress reliever, because you can trust Phillip Rivers to just be who Phillip Rivers is, which is he's a decent quarterback. He's one of the all-time greats. And he's going to be able to run your simple offense. And I think if you mix that in with a fun Taysom Hill, with a crazy Taysom Hill, let Taysom Hill go out there, throw a couple balls, run around, and be who Taysom Hill is. See, the hard part when Jameis Winston was there and healthy is Jameis Winston was doing too good that you couldn't really put or find a place for Taysom Hill. But Phillip Rivers is going to be just good enough to where you're going to be able to use Taysom Hill a lot more than you would need him if Jameis was there. And a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot more creatively. I think this would be a boss move. Game changer in my mind. One more game changer here. The Houston Texans did not trade Deshaun Watson. Game changer. Everybody thought that we were going to be able to see Deshaun Watson traded at the deadline to Miami, to Denver, and the Houston Texans said, nah, not only are we not trading you, not only are we not getting rid of you, but we're going to ask for more. And it's a game changer for more than just the fact that the Houston Texans are asking for more. The Houston Texans might have lost out on all of it. Because here's the deal. We're hearing that Deshaun Watson is now being looked into by, there's so much surrounding Deshaun Watson. We don't even know if he's ever going to be able to be allowed to step foot on a football field again because he will be behind metal bars. Now, I'm erring on the side that that's probably not going to happen from a lot of what we're hearing and reporting. I'm not reporting, but people are reporting. It looks like a lot of these cases are going to stay civil and they're not going to be investigated anymore criminally. And it looks like he's just going to end up paying millions and millions of dollars to these girls. But the Houston Texans made a gutsy move. They made a game-changing move here, and they just rolled the dice and said, listen, we're not going to get rid of you. Even though I heard that the Dolphins put out a pretty strong package, but they basically said, we don't want Tua Tagovailoa. We don't want that package. In fact, we want more, and we want more first rounders. And they took a gamble. They took a chance. So we'll see here in the next few months, in the next year or so, by the time next season rolls around, because it looks like he's going to be sitting out of this entire season, which is going to be part of his punishment anyways. I mean, he was going to be punished by the NFL no matter what, so this is probably going to be part of his, part of his punishment of him sitting out the entire 2021 season. But nonetheless, it's a game changer for the simple fact that the Texans are taking a massive gamble on either being one of the smartest organizations that's going to get a bag for Deshaun Watson next season when he's able to play and he's eligible, or one of the dumbest organizations when Deshaun Watson can't play because of legal trouble, and now they're stuck with him and they're stuck with his contract, or they just have to cut him and he's not allowed in the NFL because of who knows what's going to happen. They made a very gutsy move to not do anything with Deshaun Watson at the break. If I was the Houston Texans, me personally, I'm dumping Deshaun Watson on the first person that's going to take him. And I get it. Deshaun Watson is a once-in-a-generation type of talent. You don't see guys like this at 25 years old come available. I mean, they just, it just doesn't happen. You don't see Patrick Mahomes on the market. You don't see guys like that on the market. I mean, you just don't see this. You don't see guys like Justin Herbert out on the market. You don't see guys like Deshaun Watson, a translucent talent, a crazy talented player who was making Pro Bowls in his first 3 or 4 seasons. You don't see guys like that available. But like I said, I not only would he be available, but I would get him off of my hands. It's like holding an old stick of dynamite and lighting the fuse and hoping that the gunpowder and everything, that water's gotten in it and it's a bad stick of dynamite. You never know. Is it going to blow? Is it not going to blow? It could blow and you could lose your hands and your face and your life. Or it could not blow and now you just have a really cool stick of dynamite from the 1800s. That was a really dumb analogy, by the way, but I don't care. I mean, it's like playing with fire. You could get burned, or you could light some stuff on fire and it could look really cool. So we'll see. I would have gotten rid of Deshaun Watson in a heartbeat, but the Houston Texans are the Houston Texans, and it just seems like everybody's following in the footsteps of the New York Jets and Jacksonville and just bad organization. I seriously say this all the time. A 12-year-old that plays Madden is a better GM and a better owner than all of the owners and GMs out there right now. Now, not all of them. I am over-exaggerating, of course, but a lot of them are pretty bad. And it seems like it's very simple steps to make your organization better, and they're just not taking that. But we will see. The Houston Texans are rolling the dice. That being said, goodbye. See ya. Get out of here. Adios. Thanks for listening to the program. If you're new, welcome. The Locker Room is happy to have you. We have a ton going on. I've been talking about this over the last couple weeks. We have so many exciting things. I have a new podcast coming out called That's Life. I'm getting a co-host for The Locker Room. We're adding someone to the staff, which is very, very exciting. I mean, there's so much on the way. It's unreal. And if you want to know what's going on, if you want to stay up to date, TLR Podcast 615. That is TLR Podcast 615. That gets you access to all things Locker Room. And I mean all things Locker Room. Join us on there. Come say hi. Send me in your all-time starting 5 for your NBA. I will post my favorite ones on my Instagram. Thanks again, everybody. Once again, I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.